Welcome to Magical Internet Money. You just told me, we were talking before we started recording, that Akash is doing okay. Filecoin is doing really good. These things all have to do with AI and cloud computing and narratives that haven't been getting a lot of love lately. AI maybe, cloud computing maybe a little bit less. Can you tell me a little bit about what's going on over at Akash? We have a validator over there, which is why it's good for me to know this stuff.
Yeah, there's so much to know. I mean, man, how far back would you?
Okay.
How far back
I want to know
should
what
we
you were
get?
telling me. You were saying that Akash is like GPU decentralized in the cloud somewhere, and
All right, so
computers can use it from anywhere.
Yeah, I guess let me give step back a couple years, give a tiny bit of history on Akash. But I mean, from the very beginning, they wanted to do this with like AI, cloud compute, GPU, cloud compute, but originally they were just launching just to be like cloud compute, just like to AWS sort of product, but like the decentralized version of that, right? And that was really good. That was successful. They had they're hosting tons of websites, especially like native crypto folks websites and different validators and everything like that. But about a year before ChatGPT came out, the founder Greg like fully pivoted to like GPU, cloud compute, and was ready to roll by the time ChatGPT came out and the rest of the planet learned about AI. And so he front ran that narrative in just like the most epically awesome way, and just like he nailed it. So now there are like GPU clusters, right? A100s, 800s, G9000s, like whatever the coolest thing of the day is. And they're all like slightly better. And then NVIDIA is making better ones every year. And so you're able to rent those GPUs who is just tapping into thousands of GPUs around the world in like a cloud way, and then use them for different reasons. So you could like train small models. You can use it to like render 3D video or anything else you want to do. And so, but what's cool about Akash is they've just been crushing it. They're really involved with a product called Brev, and it was something that a company that Greg, the founder, invested in. And then NVIDIA bought Brev this summer. And Brev is already using all of Akash's GPU cloud compute in their products. So now that NVIDIA owns Brev, now NVIDIA is using Akash and will continue to.
So NVIDIA owns Brev. Brev is an AI company that needs GPU compute. Because NVIDIA owns Brev, NVIDIA, via whatever they bought from Brev, is using Akash. Akash's decentralized GPU compute.
Yes.
And Akash pivoted from decentralized cloud storage to decentralized GPU compute.
Yes, they still have all their existing, they have the other stuff going on, but they knew how important this cloud GPU compute would be for AI, and we're just really early. And so now you see like everybody else trying to catch up, right? So there's Nosana trying to do like the exact same thing, but built on Solana, and there'll be 100 other projects that pop up. Render is kind of doing the same thing, except I would argue it's like not decentralized at all. And so, yeah, that's what Akash is working on.
Okay, cool. So when we're talking about renting GPU compute, it seems like something that video games would want, right? Like they use high levels of GPU, nothing near what AI uses. Is Akash also in that niche, or are these decentralized GPU compute renting things filling that void?
Well, what's interesting is like Akash has no idea who's running the GPU. So I mean, it could be any. In some cases, they do know, right? They have partnerships like with Passage. So what they're doing with Passage is Passage has like 3D metaverse worlds. So the Akash GPUs, they render all of those worlds in the background. When you go into a Passage world, every 2 people have their own GPU dedicated to just them to render that world for them while they're in it. And what that allows you to do is there's then no requirements for your device. And so you can use your cell phone, you can use your laptop. It doesn't matter. You don't have to have like a gaming computer, because all the rendering is being done in the cloud, so that all you're experiencing is what is being rendered in the cloud and then sent to your device, into your browser.
That sounds nuts. That sounds wild. That sounds like if we could sufficiently build up enough infrastructure to provide this service that we could have video game consoles that require more or less a robust internet connection rather than a robust underlying GPU, because the GPU could be outsourced to some gigantic GPU farm providing this service.
That's exactly right. Like none of the like computational power should be happening on someone's cell phone, right? It's not a powerful enough device to like stream these like massive games. And so what you end up having to do is like download a PlayStation, like buy a PlayStation, or like download games, download lots of software. But in this case, that's all done for you. So all you get is a link, you click on it, and then you're just in that world. And it can be done on any browser.
It sounds like it feels like one of those like which way Western man type things where we have two potential realities. One where this becomes hyper centralized and every new device that comes out effectively comes out without a GPU, and you have to use the GPU that is running in some server in some other country, and they can control whether or not you have access to graphics that day. Or a decentralized world like with Akash, where you have people all over the world with their GPUs running, renting out that GPU process or compute, and you can opt into participating in that, where even if the big gigantic mega company goes down that day, you have access to this like wide decentralized network.
Yeah, it's exactly. It makes so much more sense for GPUs, especially because you can't find them, and if you can find them to buy them, it's millions of dollars to set up a proper setup, right? Sometimes $30,000 per H100. And so to have to be able to train decentralized AI models by using hundreds of different places all at the same, but all their power at the same time.
It's cool. Yeah. And as LLMs explode, I'm sure this is just going to be a larger and larger, more and more demand for this. Hopefully all of that translates to number go up for some of these products like Akash, and you were mentioning Nosana.
Yeah. So there's a project that's called Venice AI, and it's using Akash's GPU compute as well. And they have their own chain. And so the Morpheus chain is custom made for AI applications to be built on top of it. And that's
Venice AI, like Venice, like the city?
Yeah.
So Venice AI is an application on top of Morpheus chain?
Correct.
Okay. And is it like AI chat, or is it AI image rendering, or what does it do?
It's both. And because it's decentralized, it doesn't. So you can go on Chat GPT and ask for certain things, and they won't tell you about it. So, it's been scrubbed, so it can't say something good about Trump or whatever it's into.
That's Venice AI. Like, who did 9/11?
Yeah,
it's going to give you the whole details.
Well, with Venice AI, yeah, we'll just go out and try to find the truth, right? Like Elon Musk has been talking about this with AI a lot. Is he's looking at it more and more as an ultimate truth teller, as the goal. Like, this is the goal for an AI. Is to be
that terrifies me, because it's only as good as it is only as good as the information available, and that doubly means only really as good as the information available online, because it can't take anything offline effectively unless you feed it like PDFs. But those PDFs come online once they're part of its LLM. And so just theoretically, if we defer or default, what's the word for it, outsource our dependence on truth or single source of truth to an AI, I just think that's a slippery slope. There was this
it must be better than censoring AIs though from the start, and censoring all models to protect people's feelings.
I think that's true, that it's equally, well, maybe not equally, it's probably better than a censorious AI that does not give you the truth or would prohibit you from learning maximally because of its own political bias. But Socrates, when talking, well, Plato effectively, but Socrates was saying in one of his dialogues that books are going to be one of the downfalls of man, because with books, we no longer have to remember things. I thought this is kind of funny, because now we think of people who read books as particularly intelligent, but he was saying that if you can go find something in a book, why would you remember it? Why would you memorize the entire Iliad? Why would you memorize the entire Odyssey if you could just go pick it up in print? And then we had Google, and a lot of, you saw this phenomena again, which is, what is the purpose of remembering all of these facts or details or data if you can just Google it, right? If you can go to a search engine and find the answer, cool, now I have that answer, and I know I have access to it in my hand, on my computer, wherever. And because I know I have access to it, there's no inclination or no sense of urgency to retain it. And with AI, especially we have a trusted AI as a single source of truth, all of knowledge has now been outsourced to this thing that we always have available. So then what is left for the human? Like, what is the human's purpose then?
To hope for the best. I mean, like it's happening, right? Like AI isn't slowing down. It isn't going to get less useful. AI isn't going to make us less productive. And so like, we'll be insane not to use it. Just like, holding an iPhone, like it's going to be in our pocket and we're going to use it and it's going to be incredible. And of course there's tons of downsides and tons of risk, but like, it doesn't matter, dude. Like the human race is like just shot out of a gun. We are just heading towards more and more technological advance, rapid technological advancement, like until we get hit by an asteroid or something.
Did you ever watch the movie by Richard Linklater? It's Waking Life. It was done in like rotoscope. There was another movie, A Scanner Darkly, with Robert Downey Jr., which is also by Richard Linklater. But in that, it's a series of conversations just through a dream. So like the whole thing is a dream sequence, and it goes through a series of like interesting conversations with intellectuals or strange folk. One of the conversations, they talk about technological advancement and the telescoping of technological advancement. And so effectively what we have is, Iron Age, Bronze Age, thousands of years. Then we have like the very first, let's just call it, they're like the Wright brothers plane. And then just like a decade later, we have a jet. And then a couple decades later, we're going to the moon, right? And now we have AI. Allegedly. Yeah, that's right. And so what we're seeing is, instead of a linear progress of technology, we see a exponential progress of technology. And as we start to telescope faster and faster and faster, instead of seeing technological revolutions every 10 generations, every 5 generations, every one, like now it's going to be intra-generation technological breakthroughs that are revolutionary, literally change the way we interact with the world.
Are you sort of like a techno optimist or sort of one of these, like a techno doomer?
Because of who's in control of it, I'm a techno doomer. I think that, the creator has an influence on the creation, and all of the current creators of things approximating AGI are like pushing rapidly towards AGI. I just don't trust their influence. I don't trust their backgrounds. I don't trust their ethos or ethical discernment. I also just don't trust the current ethical evolution of the world. I think we're still very profit maximalizing rather than maximal, like for truth. We tend not to. We're not optimizing for, technology for its own sake. We're optimizing for specific purposes that tend to relate to profit. And that makes me a little bit nervous about having technology that might outpace our ethics.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think I'm more of an optimist, but there's no way to know, of course, like anything. But it just seems like the converging of so many different new technologies at the same time, like AI, crypto, robotics, bioengineering. And I feel like I'm going to be the type of person who just like goes for it. So like if there's if you can fly to Singapore and get like a $10,000 shot that makes you feel and look 20 years younger and makes you smarter and stronger and faster, I'm probably going to do it. You know what I mean? Like I'm into it. I'm also feel like
people can already do like steroids, right? And there's this whole ethical argument about steroids. Is it cheating? Well, if you're not competing, is it? Like, who cares, right? Or amphetamines. There's Autism Capital is a sort of famous or very easily accessible example of someone who always posts about amphetamine usage, about nicotine as like an enhancement of Adderall. All of these things do give you edge in a space where you have to be sort of on it consistently. And so you're saying that if you're trying to optimize for something, you wouldn't be concerned with, I guess, anything as long as the means got you to the end.
Not necessarily. I'm just saying, like, obviously, like, there will be like safety and, I'm just saying, like, when things seem like reasonably like cool, I feel like I will be like a rapid mass adopter of new technology. So like if a farming robot comes out and it has like all of the world's farming knowledge in one thing, and it can never get tired and just like make my farm beautiful and productive, and everything's all like the moisture levels are always perfect, and everything's, you know, it can kill any bug, it can take care of, easily identify any like blight or mold or whatever, and have a solution that it can order itself off Amazon and just take care of it. I mean, it would be incredible. So I like personal robots, anything. I feel like I'm very open to like rapidly adopt things that seem safe, but others might be skeptical of or worried about. I feel like I'll probably just go for it.
Yeah, because if you don't, you're going to become obsolete, right? If you're not an early adopter, if you're not an adopter at all, you're just not going to be hyper competitive for a very long time. And I think a lot of the stuff that we do in trading, in like yield, especially with intents coming up, is going to require adoption of AI in some capacity. Because if someone can go and just talk to an LLM and say, hey, I want a, you know, delta neutral strategy that only uses protocols with over $500,000 market cap and audits from X, Y, and Z auditor on that hits a minimum APR of 20% and has a historical backtesting of over 15%. And an LLM can do that because it has a robust enough like knowledge base. The person using that thing is going to have a massive advantage over the person trying to do it by hand. Also, we were looking at China getting some quantitative easing. I know this was a little bit strange because the way that their banking system works is not like one-to-one with ours, but it was something like 500 billion yuan was kind of being added as liquidity or easy to borrow or low rate borrows, which effectively means equities get pumped, right? Whenever there's an increase in liquidity or lower borrowing cost, people borrow, they leverage, and they put money out there. Now, hopefully, some of that comes into crypto in some meaningful capacity and not just like Chinese stocks. But
yeah,
the trend is the same. This quarter or this time frame, we're starting to see international easing. We're starting to see international rate cuts, sort of national rate cuts on our end. I do think that the age-old statement, which is don't fight the Fed, is true. And at least in my own personal lifetime or my time in finance, it has been obviously true or incredibly true. You know, 4 years of rate hikes was a very crabbish market in TradFi and bearish market in crypto. And then whenever we had rate cuts in previous times, it was like up only, quantitative easing was pushing our bags to the moon. So I have felt the effects of either fighting the Fed or not fighting the Fed, and it feels like we're just about to be in the time frame where the Fed is saying, come with me, the moon is right there.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I'm more on like I think like the Bitcoin 4-year cycle has more to do with it than the Fed. But I also like have very little understanding of Federal Reserve banking, and so like it would be silly for me to pretend to. But in general, yes, and even if it's just an extra narrative, you know, like you want things to converge,
narratives converge.
These narratives become reality because people believe them so much, and especially in crypto. And it's almost like the more new or nascent the market is, the less liquidity it has, the more these narratives affect it.
Yeah. Because they're like hyper beta plays relative to the main market that they're attached to. Right? They're sort of like pegged or moving around. And like Sailor, of course, Sailor's always buying Bitcoin. So just if he keeps doing that, that'll be awesome.
I'll be buying the top forever.
Yeah, exactly. Barachain is one of these things that I am not as bullish on as everyone else. But I would say my flip side of that is I know that like Corey Kaplan, the Dolomite team, they're going to do a big launch over there and like hyper commit to this. And I love Corey. I think he's a genius. I like that he's working with the Trump team. Hate or love Trump, I'm glad that Corey's in that team, because if Trump tries to ruin DeFi, at least they have a really smart person behind it that can stop him. And he's working on Dolomite. They're going to do a massive push for Barachain launch. Like they're going to try to be the hegemon in the borrowing and lending space of Barachain. And so that kind of makes me excited. You are much more of a Barachain bull, which is good. It's always good to have a perma bull on board. What is the reason that Barachain is going to be more competitive than other, I don't know, everything else?
Well, first, it already has been. So the Berachain testnet launch reached 1 million users. It's the third fastest application in history to reach that. Not within crypto, total. So it was like Facebook Threads, ChatGPT, Berachain testnet is number 3 globally for the fastest adopted and used product. And the original testnet, the new one's a little better. Like the original testnet was horrible. It was a horrible user experience, but you just found that everybody loves Berachain. Everybody's excited about it. And that is such a perfect investment because it's so easy to mid-curve that like, I think most of the capital will like remain sidelined while it's pumping. And then like all the people who mid-curved it and said it was dumb and silly and like just saw like Puffpaw online, like smoking vapes or whatever, that once it actually does take off, all the mid-curve folks who may have larger capital are going to add a lot of fuel to the fire. Just because
we should get one of those guys on the podcast.
Yeah, we should. That'd be awesome. I've had very smart people explain proof of liquidity to me like 8 different times, and I should say like, hey, please explain this to me like I'm 5. And I still feel like I'm sort of like just kind of touching the surface of understanding. But all I do know is I'm going to be there and I'm going to be all in, and we're all going to be like trying to find like the best yield on Berachain. I actually think it will be like a DeFi Summer 2.0 sort of thing. I think it will be that amazing.
What's the timeline looking like? When are they going to launch? I keep hearing Q4, which is this Q, or soon.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I think soon. I would say I'd be shocked if we made it to the end of October and it hadn't launched.
That's fast. That's soon. That's cool.
Yeah, I'd say 40 days max would be my guess.
40 days. What about, are you following BTC-Fi at all? I know you're a big believer that BTC is king and Bitcoin leads the markets. And if Bitcoin does well, we all do well. We all eat. Are you following any of like the liquid Bitcoin stuff going on in the market?
A little bit. I've heard. I was sort of like, it seemed like when we were in Denver in March that was the only thing that people talked about. It was all Babylon. It was all runes, ordinals, Bitcoin DeFi, everything else. I think Babylon will be really successful. That's an unbelievably awesome team, but they're also like being very slow and methodic and are not big on like shilly sort of stuff. Like this is a 10-year sort of like decorated Stanford professor who's trying to pull this off. And so you don't get much of like the CT culture with that kind of project, right? Like there's not a bunch of like KOLs and grifters and people trying to like pump it. But it seems like what they're doing is really awesome. Being able to secure proof of stake chains with Bitcoin and then also use that Bitcoin in like different places in DeFi. I think it makes a lot of sense. I'm kind of just surprised it's like taken so long, to be honest. And we did a deep dive into the runes. One of my buddies, he spun up a Bitcoin node so that we could like be getting runes every block, like the first 10 blocks, so that they would be really successful. Spent like, $10,000 and lost all our money, and it was totally pointless. But, I've been into it a little bit, learning here and there. I'm kind of bored with it. But me, I'm not chasing yield that often.
Right. Yeah. The tech is what I am becoming more curious about. It was speaking to the OpNet, or at least I was speaking to people who are interested in OpNet. And now I really want to get in a conversation with OpNet because they have proposed this like sidechain narrative, which is an L1 that is fully run on Bitcoin. And it works like, it's an L1, but it runs like an L2. So has batch transactions, which make them fast. Whenever you have batch transactions, you can, submit them all at the same time, sort of on any particular interval, which means you can settle them immediately on the chain and then have them actually settle on the ledger at some other time.
After the block, yeah.
Exactly, right, yeah. So if this is done, let's just say there was a world in which OpNet launches or some BTC L1 or BTC L2 launches and batches transactions, not like we currently have with BTC L2s where it still takes an hour to settle, even though the L2 exists. And it's as fast and as easy as an EVM. Does then BTC-Fi take over ETH DeFi because Bitcoin is just larger? And now if everything you can do on ETH, you can do on Bitcoin. Bitcoin has more inherent trust assumptions, does that make it take over DeFi? Or does ETH have enough Lindy that ETH and EVMs are still king for decentralized finance?
I think ETH has one more cycle.
Okay, yeah, please let that be true. All my bags are in ETH.
Yeah, one more golden bull run.
But I worry. So I was talking to Jesse Eckel, and he was saying that ETH has so much Lindy and so much infrastructure and so many protocols and so many new builders coming onto it and so much development and biz dev and all. I think this is totally true, that even if Bitcoin became as easy to use, as fast, and as robust of protocols as ETH, he still thinks that ETH will remain king.
King for DeFi or one day flip Bitcoin?
King for DeFi, right? Like the value that goes back to ETH, that's a totally different thing. Do we need crazy high gas for it to be ultrasound?
Could you argue the exact opposite? So could you say that is it possible that Bitcoin becomes so interesting as a DeFi yield instrument that there's more Bitcoin on Ethereum mainnet earning, or in some capacity earning yield, that Ethereum actually ends up flipping Bitcoin because there's so many institutions wanting to put 500,000 Bitcoin on ETH mainnet in some financial product so that they can earn high yield on it while it's sitting in an ETF?
I think that I'm halfway there with you. I think one of the concerns that ETH has is Bitcoin coming to EVMs. I don't think this is good for ETH, because if I can go onto an EVM, which I love to use, easy to use, quick to use, cheap to use, especially the L2s, near instantaneous and all the infrastructure is already there, but I can get a 20% yield on Bitcoin, why would I choose a 20% yield on Ethereum if I can get a 20% yield on Bitcoin? And Bitcoin has historically outperformed ETH. The reason why I hold ETH and I like ETH is because during seasons like this, I get airdrops that annualize to like 50% APR. I can leverage and get a base rate of 20% APR. As long as I'm outperforming the annualized difference between BTC ETH, which is roughly 30%, then ETH is better, right? ETH plus yield can be better for the savvy user than holding Bitcoin spot, which has always been my argument for being an ETH maxi. But if Bitcoin and wrapped Bitcoin derivatives come on chain, and now I can get 20% on Bitcoin, it's going to take an incredible amount of ETH yield to overcome that if the BTC ETH trend remains constant. So I think that Bitcoin derivatives coming into EVM land is actually a danger to ETH, even though it might increase the total AUM or TVL of all of these chains. And those are great vanity metrics for value accrual back to the chain's coins. I still think that it is more bullish for Bitcoin than it is for ETH.
Cool. Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. It doesn't,
Definitely.
it doesn't seem like the infrastructure is there, and I'm not sure how quickly it can be built to like have a good user experience on an L1 on Bitcoin.
Like, yeah, the current fear is not that Bitcoin infrastructure or that people are going to migrate from ETH and ETH L2s to Bitcoin. That is a long-term fear that I think we'll definitely see next cycle, maybe at the end of this cycle. The immediate fear is that Bitcoin derivatives are going to become so interesting on ETH chains that they absorb TVL away from ETH and ETH yields. I would love to see that, because holding Bitcoin, it just feels so cool. And even if it's not like a non-custodial version cold wallet, getting yield on it, leveraging it, it's just like a crypto nerd's dream, in my opinion.
Yeah, it will be awesome. I mean, it's exciting. I'm excited.
It also could bridge the gap, right? A lot of Bitcoin maxis, if you go to the Bitcoin conferences, they scoff at DeFi. They think, one, it's not like decentralized enough. Two, proof of stake is nothing. But if we could say, hey, I know you like Bitcoin, but what if you could get 15% yield on it and you can still have your 1-to-1 delta exposure to Bitcoin, and they trusted the custodian? I think that's going to be one of the big issues that it's going to be hard for a lot of Bitcoin maxis to overcome, is custodial risk and custodial trust. So with like CBBTC, are you willing to trust Coinbase and BlackRock custodying your Bitcoin? I think most people would say yes, right? I trust them to custody the Bitcoin. I don't trust them to never freeze or seize my assets in the event that I become like an undesirable. With other...
I mean, I think the Bitcoin maxis would say no. They don't trust Coinbase to custody their Bitcoin. you know, and that's the huge issue, right? Like you have huge Bitcoin whales who are like had their, you know, Bitcoin on a ledger for 10 years. And I think it will be mostly new participants who would be excited about yield on Bitcoin or existing
Here's
DeFi
my
users.
only counter argument, which is right now, if you want to actualize any of your gains on your Bitcoin, you have to sell your Bitcoin, which sucks. No one wants to do that. Everyone wants to be the Elon Musk of Bitcoin, which is borrowing against your shares, right? And so there are some protocols coming out, you know, OpNet's, again, one of them, like Stacks, that are lending markets where you can kind of do this, or, you know, might eventually be able to do this. I think that's going to be the huge use case. That's going to be like the killer app for Bitcoin, is just being able to use native Bitcoin and borrow against it within a totally non-custodial way, where like no one is custodying your assets or holding it. There's really no counterparty risk.
Well, it's like a Quasar vault, right? So like you can deposit into that vault, but it's still non-custodial. Like they have no way of like seizing or taking those assets, and you can still earn yield on it. So that's what we're going to need for the hardcore Bitcoin maxis, to be like, you can lock up your Bitcoin here. We have no ability to like take it, but it is locked. Right. And then you have to unlock it. And then in 7 or 14 or 21 days or whatever, you can sort of like unstake it and get it back. It never leaves your wallet. It never leaves your ledger, but it is locked in this smart contract. And then for that, we're going to give you a liquid stake derivative of that Bitcoin that you can then go and use in DeFi.
Yeah. And that already kind of exists for EVM, right? You can give it to these protocols. They custody it. They give you derivative. That derivative you can go and you can put in, I think, you know, Zero Lend is right now the EVM protocol, which has the most Bitcoin derivatives as collateral. They even have like Pendle derivatives that you can loop for, you know, 30% APR on Bitcoin, which is amazing. And you can borrow against those. And people who are willing to take those counterparty risks can do that already, which is fantastic. And then of course you can load up your crypto debit cards, some of them that require very minimal KYC with Panamanian banks, which I think is really cool, and go spend that anywhere in the world. So effectively, you've taken your Bitcoin, you've given it to a custodian. This is what most Bitcoin users don't like. Then you've gotten that derivative. You've added it as collateral on a like EVM DApp, and now you borrowed against it. Now you can go use the value of your Bitcoin, and if it goes up, well, fantastic. That's what you expected anyways. But you were able to actualize some of the value without selling. And what I think is going to happen is people are going to have native Bitcoin, no wrapping at all, and be able to borrow against that on like a BTC L1. So the same way you can borrow against ETH natively on mainnet, people are going to be able to borrow against Bitcoin natively on Bitcoin mainnet. That's the future that a lot of Bitcoin maxis want to see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really interesting.
But we'll see. We'll see if it comes into fruition.
Yeah, we'll see. I haven't seen any Bitcoin products yet that I've been impressed with or like thought that a lot of people would want to use. It still seems like pretty early days.
Yeah, and that's the thing. There's no killer app. There's no usability. It's incredibly difficult to get quick transactions. In fact, I think it's impossible. And so we're just waiting for that one chain to change all that. I hope it's OpNet. We'll see if it is. You are an IBC guy. I'm not. I was kind of in and out a few times. I like Osmosis. I've used it a bunch. And then I've like fallen in and out of love with Osmosis, depending on like when I'm using it and why I'm using it. I think they have a lot of issues that are issues for the DeFi user, but like great for other market participants. Can you explain to me what the appeal is of IBC relative to its competition?
Sure. The idea is sovereignty. Like the idea is you're an actual competent team with like a huge, big idea and you want to build it. And so then you go and you look at all these different places in which you can build, like which stack you can build on. And you go to EVM and you go to Sui and Polkadot and anywhere else. And there's no place where you have full control of your stack, where you can make all of the decisions about like block size and TPS and anything you want to do. Right? So like if you're a serious protocol who is in this for the long term, you want to be able to control your entire stack, because at any point Vitalik can have like go on a ayahuasca trip and like have some epiphany. And then all of a sudden he can change the entire Ethereum blockchain, and it may not be compatible with what you're wanting to do at all. It may actually be like the one thing that ruins the use case that you're most excited about and what you're working on. So like for me, I don't see even how you're a serious project wanting to build for more than one cycle if you're not building and controlling your entire stack. And so with IBC, in the underlying lowest part of the stack, typically you want to keep that because then it's already interoperable with like another 100 blockchains, and it's going to be interoperable, you know, and it's now interoperable with Avalanche and Solana, and will be with Aptos and Sui and everything else, right? Like everyone's building even you can freaking interact with XRP now and the XRP ledger from IBC. And so it will be interconnected to like every interesting or important place, and you can control the entire part of your stack. And so what sucks is but you have this marketing problem now, right? Like I'm an IBC Cosmos chain and be like, dude, Atom sucks. You know, and it's like, yeah, we know, but Barachain and DYDX and Celestia and Union and all these other like big, cool projects that are building there, they don't suck, you know? Barachain is just saying, they're not mentioning it at all. They are like, we have nothing to do with Cosmos. This is not going to be a Cosmos coin. But at the end of the day, this is like Tendermint, Cosmos SDK stack that they're building on. And so that's why you want to do it. It's like an out of the box that you can like tweak and change. And then you and your community and your validators are the only ones in charge of it. And it doesn't matter how many ayahuasca trips founders go on. It's up to you. Like you know.
This is the app chain thesis, right?
This is the app chain thesis, but beyond that, a little bit broader is think the type of person, the type of builder, the type of founder who wants to control their entire stack, and like that sovereignty is really important to them when building, are also, I think, tends towards the type of person who is like actually building something cool. So that's why I think within the Cosmos ecosystem, you find the highest the highest percentage of high quality projects than you would anywhere else in all the other ecosystems, because of the type of person who's wanting to build there, and because of the requirement is just big enough that you actually have to be really knowledgeable and actually have to get your shit together and actually have to be organized with like a validator set. So it's sort of this like minimum barrier that you're crossing, that it's like, well, that project's at least this legit. You know what I mean? And so I think it's always been like a really good place to look around for solid projects that are under the radar, but have the potential to have massive value, like Akash we were talking about earlier.
Well, I see what you're saying. Right. It's like Akash is actually getting some adoption from, you know, like literally NVIDIA, right? And you're not seeing that with smaller EVM chain protocols, which may be fun and great for yield farming, but not necessarily going to bridge that divide into like the TradFi real world, simply because they're not meant to. They're like built by a team of, you know, maybe nerdy yield farming guys who can throw up a protocol, purchase an audit, but they're not like building an entire stack. They're not that entrepreneurial. They're not that developed or corporate, or like able to think in terms of a total corporation or total chain or total ecosystem. They're only thinking small little protocol mindset. And so the kind of person that builds a chain for an application is thinking about a lot of other things that might lend themselves to future success that a single protocol person is not.
Correct.
So why
it's unbelievable.
Why are we seeing that kind of success at IBC?
We are. Like, I don't understand the FUD. I mean, you talk about like, okay, the number one real world asset project is Mantra by market cap. They're building a Cosmos SDK chain and launching next month.
But by TVL, they're what, 6 million? 7 million?
I think 9. But it's just like that. It's only been like a month, right? Like, I mean, they're just starting like all of these things. So then you have the most popular coin launching this year is probably Barachain. Like, I'm sure you could argue Monad, whatever, blah, blah. Then you have Story Protocol, absolutely blowing up right now. Hundreds of millions of dollars are raised. Injective is crushing it. Say is crushing it. The IBC ecosystem land is unbelievable. It's unbelievably successful, and it's full of some of the best projects in crypto, but some people on CT are talking shit, and so everyone thinks it's falling apart. But it's just not reality.
Maybe it's that IBC has an influencer problem. Influencers are like from the days of 2019, maybe like the 2022 still bearish cycle. And because everyone is looking at them for information about IBC and all they're seeing is infighting and crap talking and drama, they think, man, what a mess. All it is, you know, Mars and Astro swap or whatever that thing is called, and remnants of Terra or Terra 2 and Osmosis, and that's all that we have. That's IBC. They're not thinking about these massive and successful projects that you just mentioned as this is a new face of IBC. When you think IBC, you should be thinking, Tendermint chains like Berachain, super fast networks with high incentive packages right now, like Say. You should be thinking Akash bridging the rural divide and doing GPU compute. And you should be thinking, even we were talking to OmniFlix earlier, the idea of decentralized media, which is, I think, going to become increasingly important as we enter into 1984, at least in my opinion, in the world, which is, I think we're going to enter into a more censorious universe. Like, the UK is now cracking down on Twitter posts. Well, if we had media that's on chain, no one in the world, unless they take down all of the validators, could take that media off chain. And I think that's going to be such an important use case if we ever do ease ourselves into a horribly dystopian future.
Yeah, I think this on-chain IP narrative that has just started in the last probably 3 months with the rise of Story. And of course, no one knew about it until they said, hey, we raised $400 million today. And then everybody was like, whoa, holy shit, it's time to pay attention. This is the use case that OmniFlix has been trying to solve for 10 years because they've been working in media in India with all of the top players, Disney, Amazon, Apple, all of the top India media companies and distribution people. And so that was the reason they got into this at first. And so it was easier to launch an NFT marketplace. And now they have TV, which is a great place to launch a YouTube style video or any content like that. But the whole thing is IP. The whole thing is licensing. The whole thing is intellectual property. Intellectual property needs to be brought on chain because it makes it so easy to verify. And it also takes out all the middlemen. Kanye West and Taylor Swift and all these people have figured this out. You're like, dude, I'm signing a label deal. I'm buying all my stuff back with my extra money and I'm going to keep all my intellectual property rights forever. Because it's going to be 1,000 times more valuable than letting Sony or someone else take care of it.
The way in which we market is not the same way we marketed back in the 1970s, 1980s, or even early 2000s, right? We don't need it to be blasted all over commercials and blasted all over TV or blasted on the news for it to become popular. Yes, there's I think the way in which the boomers view news stations, the reliable news is Fox and CNN and MSNBC. And millennials are like, you know what? I don't really trust those guys as much. Maybe I go to AP directly. Maybe I go to routers. Maybe I'm looking at Twitter for news. Maybe I'm even going to some other sources. Maybe I'm looking at YouTube or podcasts. And then Xenials are like, I'm just looking for some TikTok influencer to tell me what to think. I don't know if that's true. That could be just a total dig at them. But right now, people are buying ideas with a totally different marketing approach than in the past. And so if a artist can say, well, why not just launch with complete on-chain ownership of my IP on something like OmniFlix, why would they not do that? They don't have to have a record label. They don't have to have a label that uses traditional means of influence or traditional means of boosting signal when you can become viral on YouTube just by being good.
Well, even if you just wanted it right now, because just the distribution isn't there yet, right? So you upload a video to OmniFlix and might get 100 followers, 100 views, whereas if you uploaded it to YouTube you might get 10,000, right? And so you don't have the distribution yet, but even if you have the IP ownership, which is extremely expensive and it didn't cost you $150,000 of lawyer time to figure out and register with some government agency that doesn't matter anyway. You have it happens instantly when you mint it. And then it's also stored decentralized for you on the back end through something like Jackal or Filecoin, so that then also you can't lose it. And so it makes it a really awesome, valuable, useful service, even though the distribution hasn't caught up yet to the levels of YouTube or anything else.
I think it's only a matter of time. As these problems become more real for more people, we have more content creators who are seeing this and running into these issues. I do think that adoption happens through necessity, not through interest necessarily.
Right.
Well, all right, man.
Privacy doesn't matter until it does.
Exactly. That's right. Yeah. And hopefully we get a lot of censorship in the UK and that pushes us all to decentralize. I'm kidding. I don't know. I don't know if I want to cheer for that or not. But that's it, guys, for whatever episode number this is. And thanks for watching.
See you, homie.